Open the champagne, pop the cork. The Senate Democrat leader and the Republican leader are on their way to Kiev. They've got $60 billion they're bringing. I don't know if it'll be cash in pallets, but they're taking your money to Kiev. Now, they didn't have much time, really no time and no money to do anything about our border. We're being invaded. A literal invasion's coming across our border. 800,000 people came illegally in the last month, and all they had time to do in the Senate was get the money, get the cash pallets, load the planes, get the champagne ready, and fly to Kiev. On Friday, they will take the $60 billion to Kiev, crack the champagne, and meanwhile, each day, between 5,000 to 10,000 people come across the border illegally. Now, they put up a sham bill, and they said, you should have taken the sham bill. You should have taken the ruse. We gave you a border bill. But the border bill would allow 5,000 people a day to come across, and then they would declare an emergency. Guess what? The emergency is already here. 700,000 people in 2 months is an emergency. Nearly 800,000 people in 2 months is an emergency. But they gave lie to the ruse when they tweeted out their great bullet points on how great this deal was going to be. They tweeted out, the border never closes. So they were putting forward this great border bill that the president would use to stop illegal immigration, but they tweeted out of all the main points that this would do, that the border never closes. And this is actually true, because what would happen is they would close the illegal crossings, but leave the legal crossings open. It's like, why wouldn't we have the illegal crossing always closed? Why wouldn't we, after having 750,000 people come in illegally, close down the illegal crossings immediately? And what also gives lie to their assertions is that we have the same laws we had under President Trump. And President Trump controlled the border. So how could President Trump do it with the same set of laws? And now they say, if you only gave us power, we would do something. But what gives lie to this assertion is that they're in court every day trying to dismantle the barriers that Texas puts up. Texas and 30-some-odd Republican governors have said enough's enough. They put cargo containers and razor wire on the border to say no more illegal crossings. So the Biden administration, who says just give us more power and we'll do something about the border, went all the way to the Supreme Court to get the power, and they have it temporarily. They may not keep it, but they have fought tooth and nail to remove the cargo containers, remove the razor wire, remove the border barriers. So which is it? They want more power to shut down the illegal immigration, or they want to remove the border obstacles to illegal immigration. I can't have it both ways. Now, some would argue, well, this appears to be that you don't want immigrants in your country. Nothing could be further from the truth. We admit 1 million immigrants to our country every year, and I'm for that. In fact, I'm co-sponsor of a half a dozen bills to increase lawful immigration. I think it would be difficult for America to do a lot of things, including building houses, apartments, and commercial construction, without new people coming to the country. I think some of the best Americans just got here. Many of them are my friends. Bowling Green, Kentucky is known for people from all over the world. We have 100 languages being spoken in our schools. This has nothing to do with not wanting immigrants. It has to do with not wanting 750,000 people to come across who we don't know who they are. Most of them are males of a military age, and we're doing nothing. So we come to an inflection point. That's where we are, an inflection point. And we had a chance. 41 Republicans could have stood and said, no, we want something better. There's an emergency on the border, and we will not settle for anything until we get a border security bill. Instead, it folded. Why? Because Republican leadership is flying with the Democrat leadership to Kiev because they have prioritized Ukraine over the southern border. There's no other way to put it. We have a disaster at our southern border, and the ranking Republicans and the ranking Democrats, there is no difference. They're on the same team. They'll be on the same plane to Kiev. Republicans and Democrats, same plane, pallets of cash, your money to Ukraine. Even if you could make the argument, and I think there is an argument that there is a noble cause, that these people are fighting for their independence and they're fighting against aggression. All of that is true, but there is no money to give them. We're out. We are flat out of cash. Not only are we flat out of cash, we're $34 trillion in the hole. We're borrowing money like it's going out of style. We have never, ever borrowed money at this alarming rate. It's hard to even fathom the billions of dollars that goes out the door. It's been said before, but people have asked, how do you imagine, how do you put into perspective $1 billion? What is $1 billion? If you put $1 million in the palm of your hand in $1,000 bills, it would be 4 inches high. But $1 billion is difficult, more difficult to visualize. To put $1 billion into perspective, 1 billion seconds ago, Reagan was starting his second term. 1 billion minutes ago, the Pantheon was being completed in Rome. 1 billion hours ago, we were in the Stone Age, over 100,000 years ago. But $1 billion ago, just a couple of minutes. In the time that I will speak, the government will spend billions upon billions of dollars, virtually $1 billion every 2 minutes. 30-some billion dollars in the space of an hour. It's out of control. If you look at the debt that's being incurred, and people say, what does it matter? You could be like Dick Cheney and some of these Republicans. Deficits don't matter. We don't care about the deficit. Well, you should, and you see the results of the deficit every time you fill up your car. Every time you go to the grocery store, every time you buy something, you're seeing the results of the debt. The way we pay for the debt is we print up money. The Federal Reserve buys the debt, but the Federal Reserve has no money, so they print up the money and they dilute the value of the existing currency. What does that mean? Inflation, prices go up, but so does the cost of government. People have cost of living increases, and I don't begrudge that, but it's 9% in the last year or so. So the cost of Social Security are going through the roof. The cost of Medicare are going through the roof. But do you hear a peep? Not one peep about the problem paying our own bills. We are basically like renters paying for our apartment. In what kind of world do you borrow money to send charity? If you see a homeless person and you want to help them, but you have no money, would you go to the first corner and go into the bank and say, I want to help homeless people. Will you give me $1,000 so I can help homeless people? No one does that. If you're paying the rent for your apartment, do you go to the bank and borrow the rent for your apartment? No, there are times at which you borrow against things of value. You can borrow against a home that you have a down payment on. You can borrow for capital improvements like schools or roads, but you don't borrow for your daily expenses. That's what's going on here. Realize that 2/3 of the spending is entitlements. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and food stamps is 2/3 of all spending. That's all we have enough money for. Tax revenue pays for that. Everything else is borrowed. You'll hear people talk about a budget. They say Congress votes on a budget. Well, the budget we vote on is equal to about $1.5 trillion. That's the debt. Every bit of the budget we vote on is borrowed. Last month, we borrowed $210 billion. So we're on course to borrow over $2 trillion at that rate. People are alarmed by this. The head of the Federal Reserve, Powell, said the other day that the problem was urgent. And these are the kind of people that pick their words carefully. The debt is urgent. The need to restrain spending is urgent. And so how does leadership respond? The Republican leaders and the Democrat leaders have gotten together to send $100 billion to another country while they can't pay the bills for our country. We're borrowing money to pay our rent as citizens in our own country, and we're sending $100 billion to another country. Under what world is that a good idea? It's a terrible idea.